The day began like any other until the phone rang and everything changed. The voice on the other end sounded shaken, trembling with urgency, carrying words that pierced straight through the heart. Grandma was in the hospital. It felt like the world stopped spinning for a moment. The kind of silence that follows shock when your mind can't process what it just heard. Every thought raced at once, flashes of childhood memories. The warmth of her smile, her soft voice calling your name, her hugs that made everything better. The idea of her lying in a hospital bed, weak and alone, was unbearable. Fear set in quickly, tightening the chest, stealing the air. There was no time to think, only to act. Bags were grabbed, clothes thrown in without care. The mind repeating one thing over and over. I need to be there. Nothing else mattered. Work, plans, everything faded. The only thing that mattered was getting to her side before it was too late. But then came the hesitation, the waiting, the confusion that followed the panic. The message had been brief, almost too brief, and there were no details about what exactly happened. Was it her heart again? Was she unconscious? Why didn't anyone tell sooner? The questions wouldn't stop coming. Each second felt heavier than the last, filled with dread and guilt for not knowing sooner. The mind imagined every terrible possibility, replaying every missed call and forgotten visit, wondering if this was somehow punishment for not spending enough time with her. The fear wasn't just about losing her. It was about not being there when she needed help the most. In a rush of emotions, the packing turned frantic. Every movement felt fueled by panic. The sound of zippers closing, keys being grabbed, and footsteps pacing echoed through the house like background noise to a storm raging inside. There was no time to stop or breathe. Every instinct screamed to go, to move, to be near her. The heart beat faster, almost painfully, as if trying to keep up with the flood of emotions. The image of her hooked up to machines, fragile and alone, wouldn't leave the mind. The fear twisted into guilt, guilt twisted into urgency, and urgency turned into a desperate kind of determination. Nothing else mattered except getting to the hospital. But before the door could open, reality shifted again. The panic that had built up was suddenly met with resistance. The calm words of reassurance that followed didn't match the chaos within. Being told that she was fine, that there was no need to rush, felt strange, almost unnatural. Something about the tone didn't feel right, but in that moment, the mind wanted to believe it. Believing she was safe was easier than facing the thought of her suffering. So, the packed bag stayed by the door, untouched, while the storm inside still raged quietly. The heart wanted to hope, but deep down, a small voice whispered that something wasn't right, a voice that would later prove impossible to ignore. The moment everything seemed ready to rush out the door, a calm yet firm voice stopped the movement cold. The words felt soft but carried weight. There was no need to go. She was fine, just tired, resting under observation. It sounded comforting on the surface, but something in the tone carried finality, a quiet authority that didn't invite questions. The explanation came easily, too easily, like a script rehearsed in advance. They said the doctors had things under control and that too many visitors would only overwhelm her. It was strange to hear, but the heart wanted to believe. After all, who would question family? So the suitcase was unzipped and half unpacked, clothes folded back with shaky hands, while trying to suppress the uneasy feeling creeping in. They spoke gently, saying everything was okay, that there was nothing to worry about, that the best thing to do was to stay home. They smiled reassuringly, almost too reassuringly. They promised to take care of everything themselves, from visiting her to talking to the doctors to updating on her condition. It sounded reasonable, but still something felt off. Every word they spoke should have been comforting, yet it carried a layer of distance, as if they wanted to end the conversation rather than share comfort. Still, it was hard to argue. Their tone carried the kind of certainty that makes you question your own instincts. Maybe they were right. Maybe worrying too much was making things worse. Still, an H remained, the H of helplessness. Sitting there, not being allowed to go see her, felt wrong. The urge to move, to do something, kept building. But every time it surfaced, it was shut down with words like, don't worry, or we'll call if anything changes. The tone they used had a strange mix of affection and finality, like a parent calming a child who shouldn't interfere. There was no room to argue, no chance to ask questions. They were in control, And the only choice was to trust them. Then came the second part, the part that made everything worse. The insistence on staying home. They said it softly but firmly, saying someone needed to look after the house, water the plants, keep things running. It felt like a small responsibility, but it came wrapped in guilt. Refusing would sound selfish, like caring more about being there than about what needed to be done here. So the words, "Okay, I'll stay," came out, even though the heart screamed against it. Watching them pack, seeing the calmness on their faces, only deepened the unease. They moved with a lightness that didn't match the gravity of the situation. When the car finally drove away, silence filled the house, heavy and suffocating. The heart sank, torn between trust and suspicion. There was no proof of anything, no reason not to believe, yet something deep down refused to rest. The quiet that followed wasn't peace. It was the beginning of doubt, the kind that grows louder when there's no one left to answer your questions. The nights that followed were long, heavy, and filled with silence that felt almost cruel. Every corner of the house carried the weight of worry. The bed felt too big, the air too still. It was impossible to sleep without imagining the worst. Every sound from the outside made the heart jump. Every ring of the phone brought both hope and fear. Lying awake became a routine, eyes staring at the ceiling, replaying every possible scenario. The thought of grandma in a hospital bed, maybe in pain or calling out for someone, wouldn't stop echoing in the mind. The helplessness was unbearable, not being there, not seeing her, not knowing what was happening. It felt like being trapped in a nightmare that wouldn't end. Every prayer came with trembling hands and tear-stained cheeks. Hope was all that was left to hold on to. Whispered words of faith filled the empty room each night, asking for her recovery, for strength, for just one call saying she was okay. The waiting became a punishment, and every hour stretched endlessly. The house that was once full of laughter now felt like a cage. Meals were left untouched, and the silence was broken only by the hum of distant traffic. Each day without an update deepened the worry, carving fear into every thought. The mind replayed her smile, her voice, the warmth of her arms, memories that felt painfully distant. Days passed slowly, and every attempt to call went unanswered. Messages were left on voicemail, each one more desperate than the last. The phone became both a lifeline and a reminder of loneliness. Staring at the screen, waiting for it to light up, became the only thing that mattered. The sound of silence on the other end was deafening. It wasn't just worry anymore. It was confusion, frustration, a feeling that something wasn't adding up. They always picked up calls before. They always sent updates, but now it was nothing. The same line played over and over. "We'll call when we can." The days began to blend together. The sun rose and set, but nothing changed. Sleep became rare and food lost its taste. The house remained too quiet and the heart too restless. The longer the silence stretched, the heavier the doubt grew. Was she getting better? Was she even in the hospital? The thought seemed wrong, but it couldn't be ignored. Something didn't make sense. Why would they cut off contact completely? Why were there no hospital updates, no pictures, no messages from relatives? Each unanswered call chipped away at the trust that once felt unshakable. What started as fear for Grandma's health began to shift into fear of something else. Fear that the truth wasn't what it seemed. The loneliness turned into suspicion, quiet but persistent, creeping in with every passing day. Still, the heart refused to believe the worst. Love held on to the hope that everything was okay, even when every instinct screamed that it wasn't. As the days dragged on, the uneasy silence turned into something heavier, something that couldn't be ignored anymore. There was a strange feeling in the air, a sense that the truth was just out of reach, hovering somewhere between fear and denial. Trust had always been the foundation of family, the kind of bond that didn't need questioning. But now, that trust felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Every quiet moment was filled with thoughts that refused to settle. Something wasn't right. Every instinct screamed it, yet the mind kept pushing it away, convincing itself that it was just overthinkings. Still, the feeling lingered, like a shadow that refused to leave. The routine became numb. Wake up, stare at the phone, send another unanswered message, and wait. Each day felt the same, an endless cycle of waiting for news that never came. There were moments of hope when the phone buzzed, only to find it was nothing but a useless notification. The disappointment cut deeper every time. The silence from their side felt intentional, like a wall being built higher with each passing hour. It wasn't just about grandma anymore. It was about the strange absence of connection, the emotional distance that felt like a secret trying to stay hidden. The nights were the worst. The mind became a battlefield torn between faith and fear. Trying to sleep was impossible when every unanswered call felt like a warning. The only way to find comfort was to believe that they were simply too busy taking care of her, that maybe things were improving and they'd return with good news. But deep down, something refused to believe that simple explanation. There was too much quiet, too much emptiness where reassurance should have been. And then, after what felt like an eternity, the sound of the front door opening broke the stillness. They were back. The heart leapt with relief first, then confusion. Their laughter filled the air, echoing through the hallway. They looked relaxed, even happy, like people returning from a vacation, not from a hospital. Sun-kissed skin, new clothes, and the faint scent of sea breeze hung around them. For a moment, it didn't make sense. The mind couldn't connect the image with the story that had been told. Suitcases rolled across the floor, souvenirs peeked out of shopping bags, and they spoke with the lightness of people who had no burden at all. There was no exhaustion, no sadness, no trace of worry. They didn't look like people who had spent days in a hospital sitting beside a sick loved one. The more they smiled, the harder it became to breathe. Confusion twisted into disbelief. Each glance at them felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. They asked casual questions, pretending everything was normal. But the eyes couldn't lie. Something was wrong. Something was deeply wrong. And in that moment, the uneasy feeling that had been growing all week turned into certainty. The truth was about to hurt more than any lie ever could. The confusion settled in like a storm cloud that refused to move. The laughter, the smiles, the tan lines, they all clashed against the memory of sleepless nights and silent prayers. The heart wanted to believe there was an explanation, something that made sense of it all. But the longer the eyes lingered on them, the harder it became to ignore the truth forming beneath the surface. They didn't look like people returning from a hospital visit. Their faces carried no exhaustion, no grief, no trace of the worry that had consumed every moment spent waiting at home. Instead, they looked rested, carefree even, as if the days away had been filled with sunlight and laughter rather than sickness and stress. Questions began to rise, quiet at first, but quickly growing louder. How could they look so calm after something so serious? Where were the hospital papers, the updates, the details about grandma's health? Each time the thought came, it was pushed down, drowned by the instinct to trust family, to believe that maybe things weren't as they seemed. But the mind refused to stay silent. Every smile from them looked a little too easy. Every story they told sounded a little too light. The distance between what was said and what was seen grew wider with every passing minute. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, the truth didn't come from their mouths. It came from the glow of a screen, scrolling through social media, one post after another, and there it was, a picture. The family together, standing on the deck of a cruise ship, the ocean stretching behind them, sunlight spilling across their faces. The caption spoke of laughter, of fun, of memories made, and right there, in the middle of that perfect family photo, was the undeniable truth. There had been no hospital, no illness, no emergency. While the days at home were filled with fear and tears, theirs had been filled with celebration and ease. The shock was instant. The breath caught in the throat. The heart sinking under the weight of betrayal. The world that had felt uncertain for days suddenly became painfully clear. Every unanswered call, every quiet assurance, every comforting lie had been part of something cruelly intentional. They hadn't wanted to protect anyone from pain. They wanted freedom from guilt. They had left behind worry and replaced it with deceit, crafting a lie so deep it turned love into something hollow. Looking at those photos, the sense of betrayal became unbearable. It wasn't just about being left behind. It was about being lied to, manipulated into grief while they laughed under the sun. The pain went beyond anger. It was heartbreak, raw and personal. The people who were supposed to be the safest had become strangers wearing familiar faces. The realization that love had been used as a shield for lies broke something inside, something that couldn't be repaired with apologies or explanations. Trust had been replaced with silence, and the truth became a wound that would never fully heal. The truth sat heavy in the air, impossible to ignore. Betrayal has a way of changing everything, not just how you see others, but how you see yourself. The moment the lies unraveled, something inside went quiet. It's the kind of quiet that comes after a storm when all that's left is the wreckage. Anger didn't come right away. It was shock first. Disbelief that the people trusted most could weave something so cruel. The images of them smiling on that cruise replayed over and over, not just in the mind, but in the heart, each time cutting a little deeper. It wasn't just a vacation they had hidden. It was a choice. A decision that said the truth didn't matter, that love could be used as a tool for convenience. What hurt the most wasn't being left behind. It was the lie told to make it happen. A lie wrapped in concern, disguised as care. They hadn't just gone on without saying a word. They'd built a story, one that played on love and fear, knowing it would be believed. That kind of manipulation didn't come from strangers. It came from those who were supposed to protect, those who taught that family meant honesty. And now, that belief lay shattered. The heart tried to make sense of it, tried to find some trace of understanding. Maybe they thought it was harmless. Maybe they thought the truth would hurt less if it came with a story. But no explanation could fix what they broke. When they walked through the door, laughing and pretending everything was normal, it felt like watching actors perform in a scene everyone already knew the ending to. Their words meant nothing anymore. Every smile felt fake, every gesture hollow. The warmth that once defined home had vanished, replaced by something colder, silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that speaks louder than words, that fills every corner with distance. There were no screams, no confrontation, just quiet realization. Sometimes silence is the most powerful form of heartbreak. The pain lingered, not because of what they did, but because of what it revealed. It showed that love doesn't always guarantee honesty, that sometimes family can hurt more than anyone else because they know exactly where the deepest parts of you are. They know how to twist the truth in ways that make it believable, how to use affection to mask betrayal. The lie wasn't just about the trip. It was about control. About deciding who deserved the truth and who didn't. Standing in that moment, surrounded by people who claimed to care, the realization hit hard. Family isn't always about blood, sometimes it's about trust. And once trust is broken, even love struggles to survive. The house looked the same, their faces were the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. What was once home now felt like a stage built on lies. And that's when the truth became clear. Sometimes the deepest heartbreak doesn't come from loss or distance, but from realizing that the people you thought would never hurt you already have. In the end, what began as a story about a simple lie turned into a lesson about truth, trust, and the fragility of love within a family. The pain wasn't just in discovering that the ones closest could deceive so easily, but in realizing how effortlessly they justified it. Lies wrapped in affection can wound deeper than open cruelty because they leave scars that no apology can erase. This wasn't just about being left behind, it was about being replaced, not physically, but emotionally, traded for convenience and comfort. The silence that followed spoke louder than words ever could, echoing with all the unspoken betrayal that no one dared to admit. But from that pain came clarity. It revealed the difference between love that's spoken and love that's proven. It taught that trust, once broken, doesn't return with promises. It rebuilds only through honesty and time, if at all. Sometimes, the people we expect to protect our hearts are the ones who break them the most. And sometimes the hardest goodbyes aren't said out loud. They're lived through quiet, distance, and unspoken hurt. This story isn't just about loss. It's about awakening. It's about finding strength in truth, even when it hurts more than the lie. It's about realizing that protecting your peace may mean walking away from the people who taught you what love was supposed to be. The lesson remains simple yet powerful. Love without honesty isn't love at all, and family without trust is just a collection of familiar faces. What happened can't be undone, but it can be understood. Sometimes pain has a purpose. To teach, to open eyes, to build boundaries. And though betrayal may have shattered the heart, it also built resilience. In that heartbreak, there's growth. In that silence, there's strength. Because even when love fails, truth will always remain, and it will always set you free.